joining us today on our Tidbit on initiative. Clearly you took initiative and signed up for training. So way to go, you already have half of this figured out. I want to point out your emoji button on the top of your screen. Maybe you can shoot us an emoji letting us know thumbs up, thumbs down, happy. If you're out there, how you're feeling. Tell us your mood for today. We are here because of Workplace Education Manitoba, who have the mandate to develop essential skills that people need for work, learning, and life. And depending where you are around the province, you're probably very close to one of our training centers. So in your chat box, I'd love to hear where you're from. Some of you have started that. I love it. Knowing you're from Dauphin and Stonewall. I'm coming to you today from Selkirk, Manitoba, and I have a colleague on the air with me from this Interlake region also. Oh, we're awesome. We're spread out all over the province here. Sunny Altona, Asher, love it. Thanks so much for sharing. Well, check out one of our West centers, and that's just where we do some in-person skills training. Of course, the one I come to you from is pictured here in Selkirk, Manitoba. If you're in this area, definitely visit us and join us for some of our programming. And we throw out this term, essential skills. And what is that all about? Well, it really boils down to 9 essential skills that regardless of industry or level or position, they make workers successful in the workplace. And of course, we couldn't do this without our funders. So we do want to give a shout out to ERSDC and Manitoba Education and Training, and with helping develop the curriculum, and then also our general project funding to HRSDC and Entrepreneurship Training and Trade. Thank you to them. Let's give them a thumbs up because they made this free for you all to attend today. We're here to talk about initiative. And if we flipped open the dictionary and just tried to get the definition of that word, this is what we would see. That initiative is really about an introduction step, the first step. It's about having a readiness to take initiative and to take action. And it points back to an individual on our own personal decision making. I love the root words from initiative a little more than the dictionary definitions, because when we go back to the original Latin of where we dig this word from, it really points to the concept of beginning. And isn't that really what initiative is all about? It's taking that beginning step. It's taking the first move when something needs to be done or addressed or solved. And a critical piece of initiative is being able to execute action without being told to do it. And we have all of us, I'm sure, have a whole host of examples of when maybe our children do not take initiative and how we just wish that they would do something without being told. It's just a game changer for people to evoke their own initiative. When we think about why do we want it in the workplace? Why does it matter? Well, look at the synonyms that initiative produces. Imagine reading someone's resume and you're going to hire someone to work with here. Imagine if any of these synonyms showed up on their resume or in a reference call about what they're like. What if someone said, man, that person really has resourcefulness. They've got the get up and go to make it happen. You can see instantly how it changes the relationship you have not only with them, but what the dividends would be in your company. Recognizing there is always a payoff with initiative. Sure, there's a cost, but there's always a payoff. And I love this quote by Sheryl Sandberg. How do you imagine that someone's a leader if they're always waiting to be told what to do? And surely wherever you're at in your profession, there would be places that you still hope to go or things you still hope to achieve. And without initiative, it's virtually impossible for anyone to picture you in that role. Well, talking about initiative really points to these different essential skills that we use in the workplace. We need our thinking skills to be able to think about what needs to be done, what action could I take. It touches on communication skills and, of course, working with others. And out of the 9 essential skills, taking initiative actually touches on 30% of the skills that you need to succeed in the workplace. And when we do it, we generally solve a problem, right? So a real easy example of initiative is you're near a doorway and you see someone approaching with their arms full. Well, taking initiative means I will just open the door for that person to give them a hand. They didn't ask me to do it. It wasn't in my job description to do it, but it seems logical. I could solve a problem and open the door for them. And when we do that, we not only create the solution at that moment, but we create a byproduct. So in opening the door, a byproduct would be collegiality and friendliness and changing that person's day and helping them out. It's also safety, that no one was harmed in the full arms in the opening of the door. And this example here with the toilet paper is just brilliant. Someone recognized, hey, when people go into the washroom, they tend to take their phone with them. And then where is the clean sanitary surface for them to put their phone down while they're in the washroom? So I love it because it shows so much ingenuity in solving a problem in a commercial space, because you don't want to add all kinds of fixtures and screwing into bathroom stalls. So here, instead of adding a shelf and creating more things within a stall, we could solve a problem and create 2 solutions out of 1. When we think about what the leaders say in different industries about why they care about initiative, these might be the thoughts that your own boss has, that they rely on their employees to take initiative because that brings the fresh ideas to the table. So if people are holding back and not offering initiative, they're not offering the fresh thought, the fresh think, the thinking outside the box, the coming at it from another perspective. Also, your leadership might be a little more removed from customers than maybe you are. So if you're on the front line with customers and you're seeing the needs right in front of you day to day, you're able to provide a place of care that someone who is forced to work in a back office isn't able to provide. So it's also the ability to interpret and become a voice for what the customer really needs. And then I love this quote because I think this is so true. People who take initiative help shoulder the risk of the conflict at hand. Can I get an amen if you understand that quote? A thumbs up if that resonates with you. Because this is so huge for leaders. When you have others who are willing to take initiative, it helps carry the burden of the risk. Sometimes that's about sales and profitability. Sometimes it's about safety. Sometimes it's about the reputation of the company. But it doesn't and shouldn't really hang all on one person. When we all take initiative, we really do help shoulder and mitigate the risk that's at hand. Now, if you've read any of Jim Rohn's materials, you know that he's a big business teacher in helping people with the leadership principles for success. Well, I love the thoughts he has about initiative, because he says, really, the people who don't take initiative, they just think that they work for someone else and it's just a thing. I'm just working for you. But if you actually think that you own your work hours and your work self, and you tend to work for yourself, you're more apt to take initiative because you recognize the skin in the game and eventually the payouts also. When we make those decisions to meet a need or to take initiative or to do something differently and to innovate, we're constantly, whether we think we're doing it consciously or not, we're constantly weighing out benefits and risks. The risks are so acute when you're measured on your routine tasks. So if you have a quota, if you work in a high-paced deadline, if you have to stand in a certain square to do your job and you're measured on your productivity, taking initiative can put that at risk. So it's knowing, what's my quota And then what's my capacity outside of that? Do I have the time? Do I have the space? Do I have some of the permissions to be able to reach beyond my expected duty and a little bit into the initiative and creative thinking? Of course, there's a bit of risk with chain of command, and that's not just with a supervisor whose feelings might get hurt if you have a better idea than they had. That's also with peers, and I think this is worth pointing out that one of the risks that's worth taking with initiative is looking at who do you take your coffee break with every day? Who are your workplace peers, and are they going anywhere? Do they show initiative? And so taking, one day a week when you decide, I'm not going for coffee with the masses, but this one day a week, I'm going to use my coffee break to do some personal development and read something. Taking that kind of risk to say, I'm going to separate myself from the flock and think outside the box, because the benefits are huge. Personal brand recognition is a thing. You focus on this when you're looking for a job, but when you've landed the job, your personal brand continues. Who are you? What do you bring to the table? And remember that leadership quote. I can't picture that person being a leader because I always need to tell them what to do. So recognizing that initiative really strengthens your personal brand and your personal opportunity potential. The synergy it creates in the office, unbelievable what it brings to the team, because when people see that you're willing to put yourself out there and shoulder the risk alongside them, you'll create all kinds of creative solutions that really innovate your product and your service delivery. Now, Shripad Pence writes about this ICR approach. Do you have initiative, creativity, and results all together in one package? A lot of people could take initiative without being creative or without demanding results. So maybe a silly example would be, you think to yourself, oh, I want to show that I have initiative. So the recycling bin is always on the left side of the room. I'm just going to move the recycling bin to the right side of the room. And then that shows I have initiative. Well, was it any creative solution? Like, did it meet any kind of a need? Was there a reason to do that? Was it thinking outside of the box to meet people's need and maybe where the traffic flow in the room is? And did it yield any results? Did it make a difference? Or was it wasted energy and a wasted use of retraining people on where the recycle bin is? Now, I'm just going to put myself out there and let you know I learned this the hard way. You can take creative initiative and not get the results you need. So years ago, I married a farmer, and everyone around us had absolutely massive gardens, bigger than a city yard would be. And so my first garden that I undertook was this massive plot. I'd never seen anything that big for a vegetable garden. And I looked around at the neighborhood and I thought, well, it's just so boring. Everyone plants their gardens and it's just so boring. Maybe I could plant a garden and be really creative. So I planted, I don't even know how many things, like hundreds of things. And I thought I'd make a design. Now, this is before like corn mazes were the thing. This is just me thinking, I just want to be creative. So I essentially created a corn maze with all kinds of produce. It's okay, you can show me a laughing emoji if you know exactly why this didn't work. So I created this beautiful creative garden with this pattern. It would be interesting to look at as you drive by the road. And then with great laughter with my husband, we discovered why people don't do that, because the rototiller doesn't fit through creative designs. So what it meant is I spent all my effort pulling weeds because there was no machine that could work through my creative plan. So as good as an idea might be, as cute as it might look, does it really produce the results that are needed? And we can't get upset when we take initiative and we're measured on the results instead of just the principle that we took initiative. Results has to be a part of the package. So some of the tools to get there would be looking for the ways that we could add value. And it's easy to think of the ways we can add value to customers. Sometimes solving those problems are pretty obvious because the customer often is demanding a solution. But what about other internal stakeholders, colleagues? What about our company's culture? What about our industry's culture? You know, it's interesting. I was talking to someone who drives a semi the other day, and their company has a huge thing about culture that their semis are absolutely immaculate, always chromed up, shined up, beautiful. The drivers are dressed up, and they're changing the whole culture of what you think long distance transportation looks like and turning it into a really dignified, professional, beautiful operation. So are there ways that we can take initiative to add value to our industry, even a little bigger than just the customer right in front of us? And doing what needs to be done. There's often a fear with cross-training. Oh, if we cross-train that person, it means I'm going to get something taken away from me. What's going to happen? Am I going to lose a job? But a lot of taking initiative is sharing the information you know so that you're empowering other people to be able to also solve problems with you. It's that sharing it on our shoulders together. And then, of course, asking for responsibility doesn't hurt. We can ask. We can say, hey, you know, what else can I do? I noticed that I'm here for 7 hours a day because you need me at the front desk, because you need a receptionist there when the doors are unlocked. But really, I don't have 7 hours a day worth of work. I could probably get all my stuff done in 5 hours. So is there anything extra that, you know, when I'm sitting here, there's other things I can just chip away on? Can I fix up the filing system? Can I clean something? Can I create an inventory spreadsheet? Are there things I can just chip away on and do? And when we ask that, like, you probably will make someone smile because you want to contribute more than what you're being asked to do. But in that moment, also initiative takes a little bit of humility because there's not a lot of glory in initiative. You have to be willing to do the things that others don't really necessarily want to do. I'm sure we've heard of this little company, right? Anyone out there heard of this multi-billion-dollar company? Give me a thumbs up if you have. I encourage you to read some of their leadership principles for their company. It's not an accident that 3M is absolutely massive because their leadership principles for decades are so fascinating. Well, one of the lab techs named Richard Drew was tasked with working with people who painted cars like auto body and figuring out the right applications for what they needed. But he discovered that by accident, really the auto body people were saying, we have a hard time masking off the parts that aren't supposed to be painted, and there's no product for that. So he started creating painter's tape, and he came to the table to the leader, William McKnight, several times and said, I think we need this removable kind of tape. Like, I think the industry needs this. And he was shut down a few times, and eventually he came with a prototype, and it was accepted, and it became one of 3M's biggest sellers. Like, have you bought painter's tape? Anybody out there use painter's tape or post-it notes or things with removable glue? He met a need by his own initiative, by seeing what was needed out there and volunteering and taking the initiative to do it. So if we want to create initiative in our teams, we can do that with any kind of retreat. Sometimes you can do a couple days together. Sometimes you can do a couple hours together. There's so many resources on where you can go to leave your building and go somewhere else to get some fresh synergy and brainstorming. Good old flip charts. And you'd be amazed what those can produce when people can just think. Have you ever given your manuals or your flowcharts to someone not in your team? Someone who it would not make sense to? It's the perfect test to create initiative and new thinking, is to give a flowchart that makes sense to your department, to another department, to see if they can interpret it and maybe even improve it. How do you dole out the gratitude? Are you able to actually praise people who take initiative? And do you ever try reverse training? Do you use someone in an entry-level position to train someone in a higher position, and so on? Because this is how we pull out the different perspectives that we all have from our various vantage points. And one of the most famous coaches has a beautiful quote: be slow to correct and quick to commend. Because all these innovations and initiatives usually involve failure. But it's not failure of the individual, it might just be the prototype. And to get there in the team, to have team initiative and synergy, it really starts with the individual and with that dint of hard work. I love this quote. A lot of people never use their initiative because no one told them to. Have you ever heard this? No one told me to. I didn't know I should pick up that spilled box of popcorn in the entrance because no one told me to do it. Well, we've heard of the Covey brother, or the Covey father and son, right? And the Coveys speak so much about leadership. And they really unpack for people why they don't get the promotion, why they don't get the good job. Because it's taking the initiative in the consistent principles with the company. So initiative with the right principles actually empowers you as an employee. So beyond just looking at the team, how do we turn that initiative conversation towards ourselves? Have we cultivated a genuine care for either what we do, or maybe you're in a job you actually hate? You don't like the actual job, but can you find a place of care? Is it one of the customers, or is it one of the tasks? Is it one of the ethos of the company? What is it I can show I care about? And do I act like I'm the owner, that everything I do affects the success of the organization? Am I able to share praise with other people and applaud their initiative instead of maybe being threatened by it? Do I have the critical thinking skills necessary? Meaning, can I evaluate what's happening around me? What should be happening around me? Which ways can I connect into the positive change? And I used to work with a guy who always said, well, run with it. And I sort of hated it and sort of loved it, because you end up getting more work when you have these ideas. But he would never hear a problem. You could talk to him about any problem as long as you had an idea of a solution. And then as you vet through the different solutions, eventually you come up with one that just might be worth trying. And he loved saying, just run with it. So there is a risk when you have initiative. You might have to do something about it. And enthusiasm maintenance is really your own job. No one can do it for you. We all hit a wall in our professions and with our employers and so on. And finding and digging in the enthusiasm to keep going is really something that has to happen on the inside. So some of the ways to cultivate those behaviors, hold on to your seats. We're going to go through these quickly, but we're going to look at 9 specific behaviors that show that you demonstrate initiative in your workplace. Never standing still is huge. You might have a job, in fact, where you have to stand still. Think about the cashiers at big box stores. Superstore has this philosophy on certain days of the week. Every checkout will be open. Well, what do those cashiers do when they have no customers in line? Good ones pop out of their cash register area and they go straighten up the chocolate bars and the magazines and greet customers and help people find their way. So even in a job where you're restricted to your one area, it's really about staying productive the entire time that you're on duty and in that role. Doing more than is required. That job description you've got, it's really the bare minimum. Like, if you don't do this, we're going to have big problems. But feel free to do more than this, because we can't write down every single thing that would ever need to be done. And if we have some empathy for our team members, it really helps us to be able to find those things that should be done or addressed. Because when we think about a team and not just ourselves, we're able to think more creatively. Now, I have a colleague in the wings here. You can't see her or I today, but I love that she says this all the time: be brave, ask questions. It takes courage to actually ask questions and share your ideas. And this is a critical part of taking initiative. Of course, finding the right place to do that is a strategy that's required, but speaking up and actually sharing your ideas, because A, it might be a bright idea that no one's thought of, but B, you might be the third person to come along with that same idea, and finally it catches on to the hearer because they go, man, everyone keeps saying we should do this. Maybe I'll give some thought to that. Don't underestimate confidence. It is something that demonstrates initiative for you to be able to dig in for yourself and recognize, hey, I have something to contribute here. And if I do that in a respectful way, maybe my voice could be heard. And have we ever felt like this guy? We're asked to do something and it almost makes you pull your eyeballs out. One of the ways to overcome that when we're taking initiative is to recognize that every opportunity is actually an opportunity. It might really stink. We might have to do something we don't really love doing, but every opportunity is an opportunity. And one of the ways I saw this demonstrated in one workplace I got to be a part of is that the president of the company did not like litter. So anytime it was a huge facility and anytime he was walking by anywhere, if there was something on the ground, he just picked it up, kept walking to the nearest trash. And it became a company culture where I'd say about half the people who worked there adopted the same thing, that anybody walking by, if there was something out of place, they fixed it. A crooked picture, a garbage on the ground, a chair that should have been put back. And that's people looking at every opportunity as an opportunity. Hey, I'm not the janitor, but no one's asked me to do that, but I see an opportunity to make this place better. And who knows what that leads to down the road. Preparation is huge. It's so key to be thinking about what you can bring to the table in what's expected of you first, and then moving on to what you can reach out with beyond that and take initiative. And I probably hate this one the most out of all of them. You have to be self-promotional. I'm terrible at this. This is such a delicate balance of being obnoxious. But really, it's when you know you've vetted your idea and you've given thought to this and you have skin in the game. You care about the customer or the project or the deadline or the profitability. And you're willing to say, hey, I know how to do this. I know you didn't ask me to do this, but I could actually help you with this if you'd let me. So balance that one out with a measure of humility, but it's a key one. And again, like I referred to my colleague about asking questions and being willing to ask them sometimes even in front of others, because you don't know what you can spark in each other. What you bring to the table in solving a problem might just be one piece of a puzzle that the group around you can all contribute more pieces towards, and then together you have a synergy happens that can happen when everyone's willing to have that dialogue. So the 9 steps we walked through, those really talk about what can I bring to the table as an individual, and then when I bring them, does it cultivate a culture that teams or a larger group than just myself can also adopt so that together we can innovate. When you believe in what you're doing and use your imagination and your initiative, you can make a difference. And really, we love to work for our paychecks, but really at the end of the day, aren't we hoping that we make a difference? That's really why we're doing what we do it. And I think people in those front places, that first point of contact with customers, they get to feel the dividend of that right away, right? You make a customer or a client happy or relaxed or meet a need, you get to feel that dividend right away. And then people who are a little more removed from that, you sometimes have to dig a little deeper on that enthusiasm maintenance so that you can be a part of that solution. Again, I have to just sort of applaud you. I wish I had the emoji button on my screen. I don't have it, so I just need to tell you, the very fact that you signed up to take a workshop about initiative already speaks to your own character and your own willingness to learn and grow and develop. And so I wish that I could give you the pat on the back for that, and even your employers, to let them know what you're doing and how you're developing. It's pretty awesome. And on that note, we just want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today and recognize that maybe there's more training you want to do, more inspiration you want to keep that enthusiasm up for the work at hand. And if that's the case, please visit us at weminterlake.ca. And we have a whole host of training that's coming up on every Tuesday this summer, and then we'll launch shortly our fall programming for you. Always free, no cost to you. We love to have you. Thank you so much for joining us, and I give you a farewell and wish you just an awesome rest of the day today. Go ahead and take initiative and have a great day.